session conducted under AICTE Training and Learning Academy. Our speaker for this graceful session is Dr. CVR Murthy sir. I hope that the previous session of sir has proved to be informative for all of you present here. This session will also useful and informative for all the participants. We all are already familiar with the outstanding personality of Dr. CVR Murthy sir. Sir, it is really a privilege to invite you again to speak and share insights with us on another topic named the critical role to techno-legal system in ensuring earthquake safety. Now, without any delay, I would request Dr. CVR Murthy sir to please share his wonderful experience and words of wisdom with us. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Amira. Only thing is, I'm not doctor. Just wanted to repeat that once more. You keep saying doctor, doctor. I feel dangerous because I'm having a frozen shoulder. I'm not able to do anything about it. So I'm feeling very bad. Anna. So don't call me doctor necessarily because I can't help myself. I'm not able to help anybody. Good. So let's get started. For those of you who are willing to take new challenges, here is another question which, as teachers of India, we will have to support the government with. And so it's an important subject for all the teachers. And the subject is techno-legal regime to regulate development of built environment. And this is, you might think that I have nothing to do with it. This is all government. No, this is wrong. Teachers are in the center space of this. And so I'm going to talk about the techno-legal regime, the context, and then the techno-legal regime and the role of teachers today in this subject. So on the context, I would like to show you the magnificent Himalayas, the broken Fatehgarh Dam, and the stepped slope failure with Jaswant Arlikar is daring to get into and seeing the cracks, the sliding surfaces of the railway embankments, the quay walls giving away due to liquefaction, the fracture of the longitudinal highways, the tilting of the seaport in Kandla, the collapse of the office building next to the seaport control tower, liquefaction, extensive liquefaction in the Kutch region, the upliftment of a building by 7 centimeters, the collapse of a masonry houses in Uri Tangdhar region of the India-Pakistan border, the precariously balanced masonry houses, the laterally dilating two-story masonry house, a new school building being built in Jammu Kashmir without any lintel bands, an existing school building with 60% opening and carrying 400 school children, the classical Dhaji Diwari construction which is standing for centuries facing earthquakes very regularly, the outstanding thermal comfort and physical safety of people in the Dhaji Diwari constructions, the modern architecture blended with the Dhaji Diwari construction in high-end constructions in Jammu Kashmir with very intricate detailing and through explicit architecture. This construction is prevalent in the north of India. The hybrid unreinforced masonry in the lower story and a sense of Dhaji Diwari in the upper story. Unreinforced masonry in the lower story, wooden houses in the upper story. The collapse of the railway station building in Bachau, the fracture of these rails, the collapse of the roof of the brick kiln in Kutch, the open ground story structure in the Indian Oil Corporation campus, the collapse of numerous 5-story houses, multi-story buildings, Takshushila here in Bhuj, the complete collapse of a 4-story building on the background and the collapse of the open ground story in the foreground on the Indian Oil Corporation building, collapse of 2 stories on the right hand side, collapse of 1 story on the left hand side, out of plane collapse of infill walls of the BSNL building, the collapse of the school building in um, Kutch, pancaking of the floors, collapse of 3,500 reinforced concrete school rooms in various parts of Gujarat, the collapse of precast roofing truss systems, and the precariously balanced bridges in Narmada region, the damage to the short span at Wand, the damage to the arch bridges, masonry arch bridges, railway arch bridges, the construction of well foundations without any reinforcement in them, uh, the collapse of long freeways that are built in Japan but same are being built in India with much similar construction strategies, the fracture of the roads, the collapse of the jetties in Andaman Nicobar, the complete loss of jetties in Andaman Nicobar, fracture of water pipelines, severe damage to elevated water tanks at the beam column junctions, collapse of the shaft staging structures, collapse of the frame staging structures, collapse of the uh, electric control room in Anjar, the line breaker poles, the ceramic line breaker poles collapse in Anjar electrical yard, the passenger terminal in Port Blair, the passenger terminal in Car Nicobar Island, the air traffic control structure in Car Nicobar Island collapse, the collapse of the salt factory in Kutch region, the mushrooming number of buildings that are touching each other all along the Himalayan belt with little or no space for any relief in the country. In all this that we are looking at is there is no techno-legal regime across India, and hence from dust to dust, from ashes to ashes, from rubble to rubble is what our destinations seem to be here. Sloped constructions, pancaking of structures, lateral pounding of one structure on the other and that structure on the fourth one, and identical foundations across the country, column sizes not changing irrespective of the height of the structure and remaining 9 inches forever in this country, and collapse of the single story scooter shed. A contrasting behavior of two neighboring structures, one collapsing catastrophically and the other one standing bright right next to it. In all that you saw here, the question that I have for all of you here is, where did we go wrong? And I want to hear this from all of us. We are teachers, we have to do introspection. The question is, where did we go wrong? What is
Most
it?
of the time we are wrong in cost cutting. I think most of the projects are पैसा कैसे बचाए, उस चक्कर में डिजाइनर्स हायर नहीं होता है, स्ट्रक्चरल इंजीनियर्स हायर नहीं करते हैं.
ओके, क्या करना चाहिए आप बता सकते हैं?
अवेयरनेस
और नेग्लिजेंस चलता है एटीट्यूड इन इंडिया.
चलता है एटीट्यूड. क्या करना चाहिए बताइए.
Sir, previously no buildings were designed resistant.
No. This is not the approach. You have to raise your hand and then I'll know the name. Otherwise, I'm hunting in this 111 people who is speaking. हाँ, Patel साहब, Paresh Kumar Patel साहब.
Sir, previously whatever structures were constructed, no codal provisions of earthquake were followed.
Code provisions were not followed. Okay. How do you say they were not followed?
Quality of work.
No. How do you say they were not followed?
Because I myself was previously working in a structural design office before joining as a lecturer. and there we were designing only for the gravity loads.
Okay, can you send us a list of all your structures? We will not go anywhere near that.
No, the building has collapsed.
No. Array, if you are saying that I have designed without any earthquake force and now you become a teacher, you better send us a list of all your buildings and structures so that we will make sure that we will cordon off that area and stay away from it. और बताइए what we should do. रवि लक्ष्मण लालवानी साहब. लालवानी साहब आप हाँ कहिए.
सर मेरे को लगता है कि एथिकल इंजीनियरिंग कम हो रहा है. लोगों को क्या चलता है एटीट्यूड सिर्फ प्रॉफिट, और कभी कभी लगता है हमारे कॉलेज का या सिस्टम का जो एक इशू है कि हम मेरिट बेस्ड एडमिशन कम करते हैं और हर जगह कोटा बेस्ड और वो सब ज्यादा है. तो
नहीं वो इशू मत लाइएगा क्योंकि वो that is not
वो एक्चुअली सर वैसा नहीं, लेकिन जो एक
wait. Any human being who is in the college has to be taught. Any teacher who is in the college has to teach. So let's not talk about any other subject except the main subject of earthquake safety. And so let us say that what is it that we can do in the road ahead. I have one more hand raised. परेश कुमार, अच्छा इन दोनों का हो गया खत्म तो they will lower their hand. दोनों का हैंड. हाँ संकेत जैन साहब.
सर बेसिकली सर हमने यूजी मतलब प्रैक्टिसेस में जब यूजी जब मैंने भी इंजीनियरिंग करा है तब हमने कभी भी अर्थक्वेक इंजीनियरिंग को इंट्रोड्यूस नहीं किया है. अभी भी कई जगह पर हम लोग यूजी में उसको प्रैक्टिस नहीं करते हैं. अभी मैं इंदौर से हूँ सर, मध्य प्रदेश से, तो अभी जाके यहाँ की स्टेट यूनिवर्सिटी जो आरजीपीवी है या हम लोग जो प्राइवेट यूनिवर्सिटीज है अब वो यूजी में भी उसको लेके आ रहे हैं. डिसाइड की मतलब हमारा इंदौर रीजन इतना अर्थक्वेक प्रोन जोन में नहीं है, फिर भी अब हम उसको इंट्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं. तो अवेयरनेस कम है सर, और हम बेसिकली मतलब जो ABCD है वहां से स्टार्ट नहीं करते हैं और कई जगह ऑप्शनल सब्जेक्ट्स में उनको रखते हैं. तो ये भी एक है कि अभी के जो इंजीनियर्स निकल रहे हैं उनको प्रैक्टिसेस नहीं पता है कि अर्थक्वेक इंजीनियरिंग भी कुछ चीज है या हमें बिल्डिंग इस तरीके से डिजाइन करना चाहिए.
Okay, good. You have raised one fundamental issue of education. That is what you have raised. Okay. Any योगेश चौहान साहब हैं? योगेश चौहान साहब नया बात बताइए. You are muted. You are muted.
Yes, sir. The limitations of code, they are not upgraded time to time.
Codes are not upgraded dynamically. Very good. परेश कुमार पटेल साहब आपके पास एक और.
अभी 2000 के अर्थक्वेक के बाद गुजरात में the subject of earthquake was compulsory civil engineering students. Now when the syllabus has been revised, they have made it optional.
Yes, अभी drop हो गया. Sad story.
So now they feel that it is not so important for all the engineers to learn earthquake engineering.
That too in Gujarat, if you say that, then others will do it differently. Nitin Kataria sahab. Yes, Nitin Kataria sahab.
So in lot of corporation, it is not mandatory to submit the design drawings, etc. But it is compulsory to sign off the architecture. No one considering the design.
So structural safety is not being examined in any of the municipal offices.
Yes, sir. That should be considered.
Very good. अच्छा. So एक और दीपा रावल जी.
Yes, sir.
जी.
I think 1 second, sir. Yes, sir. I think. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
Okay. Sir, the thing is, as per me, there is no responsibility. Is nobody is held responsible for any kind of catastrophe if happens.
Okay.
It may so happen.
Accountability नहीं है, ठीक है. Next.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thanks.
ठीक है. गोविंद भाई आप, मैं महाजन गोविंद भाई, आप कुछ कहना चाहते हैं, नया कुछ कहना चाहते हैं?
यस सर, मार्केट में अभी स्टील बचाने का कंपटीशन चला हुआ है। स्क्वायर फीट में आप कितना लाके देते हो, इस चक्कर में भी
अच्छी
कभी
बातें कहें भाई साहब, अच्छी बातें कहें, क्या करना है बताएं, और पीछे पलट के देखना हो गया खत्म। अब आगे देखते हैं। सतीश कुमार अहिरवार।
Peer
सतीश
review
कुमार,
system is missing.
क्या मिसिंग है?
Yes, sir. Peer review system. Peer review system, sir.
Yeah, peer review system is missing. Who is speaking?
Satish Kumar, sir.
How can you speak without your video on? If you self-respect तो होना चाहिए भाई।
Sir,
हाँ जी, thank you. That is a good point you said. We needed to bring that forward. Yes.
because in municipal corporation they not followed the peer review system, sir.
Yes, yes.
For the approval of housing buildings and these projects, sir.
नहीं मैं समझ गया हूँ। सुशील पटेल साहब, सुशील पटेल।
Sir, I'm not a teacher but a student, but I also want to say something if you allow me, sir.
Hey, say something legal, yes.
Sir, I think that there is some lack of practical experience, practical knowledge on the building that we are designing. For example, like we just design the building according to the code, but we don't test practically कि कितने magnitude का earthquake सहन कर सकता है.
Magnitude, no magnitudes. Earthquakes, buildings are not designed for magnitudes. Buildings are designed for intensity. So magnitude 8 in Los Angeles will do nothing to you. Magnitude 8 in Himalaya will do nothing to you. Magnitude 8 in Kutch region will do something to you. So it is not magnitude, it is intensity.
Yes,
and
sir, intensity.
Intensity is given in the Indian standard. Okay.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Chalo. Chetan bhai.
Yes, sir. Actually, in Gujarat, in 2006, professional civil engineering bill was passed, and I think in that a lot of responsibility has been fixed up. But till today, it is not implemented.
It's not implemented.
So
yes, that's another. Implementation is a big issue. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yeah. And sir, it is very difficult to decide the response of the structure which were collapsed in 2001 earthquake. So many court cases are there, but nobody is penalized because it is very difficult to fix the responsibility.
Yeah,
so that is
with no system, it's not possible to penalize. That is very clear. You should have a system, then only you can penalize. Ronak Motiani. Ronak Motiani.
Yes, sir. Good morning, sir. I think so, sir. ABCD, what you said that what building is analyzed, it is not designed the same way. What is being designed is not constructed in the same way. The open ground story example we can take, sir.
Yes. Very good. Thank you so much. So in general, I see that you are conscious of what are the factors that are driving us. Yogesh Chauhan, last question.
Yes, sir. So there is no qualification, means we have professional bodies in other countries, like they have professional bodies, they give qualifications to the structural engineers, but here anyone can design. And there is no specialty as well. The person who is designing building, he is also designing bridges also.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Good.
So, sir, that is based on the experience only. Based on the experience, if we have 5 years experience on the site, then he will be qualified for the design.
Yeah.
So that is so it should be competence based.
It should be competence based. Okay. So let's get started with our point of the day here. So let me begin that NDMA guidelines in 2007 asked for earthquake resistant new constructions, all new construction to be earthquake resistant. We need to retrofit many of the existing structures, and we need to have regulation and enforcement. And of course, it has talked about capacity development also. So before I begin, I will like to mention here that when you start doing something, you know what has to be done. Yes. Then are you trying to do that? No. Then that is error of intention. If you are doing that, then are you succeeding? If not, that is error of execution. And if you are succeeding, that's successful completion of the task. But if you don't know what is being done, do you recognize that you don't know? Do you know that you don't know? That is error of concept. And if you know what you don't know, then are you trying to make up for that? If you're not, that is error of intention. And if you are doing something, are you succeeding? If you're not succeeding, then you need to go back and check whether you know what you don't know. And if you're succeeding, of course, then you have to start asking, are you doing it? So in this entire exercise, 3 errors are there, and that is error of concept, error of execution, error of intention. Error of intention is the most dangerous of all of these. Willful misconduct of professional services culpable under Indian Penal Code as homicide. This is what is the technical sentence that will be read out against you if you are part of that crime. Okay, this can be contained only through a national law like Earthquake Risk Reduction Act or the Structural Safety Act. The second one is error of execution. We need techno-legal regime, which is third-party peer review of professional services based on building codes and bylaws prevalent, and this has to be done by licensed engineers and not by anybody who's claiming that he or she knows what to do. And the error of concept is correctable through capacity development. It's through technical education and continuing technical education, right? This is what will be the essence of what I'm going to talk about today, and many of you have captured those thoughts. Structural safety has 3 facets to it. One is building regulations, second is enforcement mechanisms, and third is capacity development. Building regulations include building bylaws, which largely talk about land use planning and safety norms and architectural aspects, and the use of and the building codes are part of the building regulation regime. Now, building bylaws are typically done by the state, and building codes are typically done by the nation. Enforcement mechanisms, I said at the national level, Earthquake Risk Reduction Act, and then we need to equip all the municipal offices with architects and engineers who can examine the structural safety. And then third is to review, have a design basis report and get it reviewed first before one does the design. And then you go to design is submitted, and a third party peer review of structural designs is undertaken by professional civil engineers. And then they need to make sure that all the building regulations are complied with. Capacity development has 3 segments. One is technical education of all the new graduates who are coming out, and continuing education for all the existing graduates who are practicing, and then to license them is the other major responsibility. And then finally, certification of artisans. This, if we do all of these items, then only we are giving the fair chance for structural safety to happen in this country. So as I said, let's talk one by one. Building regulations are building codes which are by national Indian standards and standards by the various other bodies like the Atomic Energy Regulatory Board, Indian Roads Congress, RDSO. They are some of the bodies that set the standards for structural safety of the built environment. And this is it is a recommendatory document, not a mandatory document, unless the tenders include this as part of the requirement. And when you come to each state, the state has a Town and Country Planning Act, under which development control regulations are made and land use planning and regional aspects are reflected on. How should development happen in the state is something that the development control regulations will tell you. And then when you come to each municipality, it will talk about building bylaws. So through a gazette, the building bylaws are created, and the building bylaws are more local and not necessarily at the state level. State makes a model building bylaw, and each local municipality or Panchayati Raj institution has to adopt it and then say that they are enforced for us. They can modify it also to some extent. So what we're talking about, building codes talk about safety. Town and country plan Country Planning Act will talk about use of land. This is at a state level. And at a municipal level, building bylaws will talk about use of plots. The large parcels of land, how they have to be used, how much should be left for various other developments is something Town Country Planning Act will, or development control regulations will focus on, but the use of plots will be talked about by the building bylaws. So building codes to building bylaws, this whole sequence is something that we need to adopt in toto if you want to make a structure safe. You need to comply with bylaws, you need to comply with development control regulations, and as well as building codes. So one aspect of bylaws I want to talk about today is that if you see the city of Los Angeles, all buildings are 1, 2, 3 stories tall, except for a couple of buildings in the foreground and one along that Santa Monica Boulevard, which are tall buildings, right? And if you look at India, go to Bombay, suddenly in one place, we are going to have a 4.0 as the FSI given to a local area for development. Bandra Kurla complex is getting 2, and then Dharavi will get redevelopment project will get about 4. This is the sudden spurt of this, and that is what you're seeing here, that FSI typically, depending on how far you are away from the center of the city, you will get reducing FSI as you go farther away, because you have more land, you don't have to necessarily push upwards. But here is where you see that suddenly we are doing something unusual in Dharavi here. Also, you notice that some cities have gone all the way up to 10 FSI, and the challenge of those cities will be to maintain those buildings as well as to give fire safety protection in those buildings. We are already feeling the challenge that we are not able to reach more than 30 meters, 40 meters with the Indian fire tenders that we have. And so to think of taller buildings is again going to be a crisis. The same story is in commercials also. As you get closer to the center, the FSI value is skyrocketing, and as you are farther away, it is much more modest. So what is this whole story of FSI? The number of stories that you have to build is basically FSI by ground coverage. The detailed expression is on the left bottom. But if you are looking at increasing the ground coverage, you're allowing people to build on the whole parcel of land, then you will get smaller stories, smaller number of stories. Otherwise, the number of stories will be very large. This is a picture that will tell you that you are having FSI of, let us say, 4, and if you have a 50% coverage, then 4 by 0.5 is 8 stories. If you have FSI of 4 and 25% coverage, that becomes 16 stories suddenly. Let's go to the more modest 1.33 FSI, and in 50% coverage, you'll have a 3-story building, but if you do 25% coverage, you'll go to a 5-story building, right? So basically, you are unduly increasing the number of stories by simply forcing that you have to use only a smaller bit of the land. Now, if you pack up large number of buildings very close to each other, and you don't want these buildings to touch each other, and that is why you're actually insisting on taller buildings. And this is the worry that we have, that tall buildings are of the rich, for the rich, by the rich. It is not affordable by the poor, especially maintenance costs are prohibitive. And as I said, fire safety is something that we will have to worry about if we go too tall and our fire tenders can't reach there on time. So early versions had bylaws had excellent provisions actually. 7 to 8 revisions in the last few decades have degraded all these bylaws, and they're all mimicking each other. And the middlemen and interest groups are playing havoc in the interests by getting their interest in knowledge is power and ignorance is bliss. This is what we are trying to understand. And middlemen are keeping knowledge away from the common man and plundering on ignorance. Stability versus safety. Interestingly, all municipalities give you stability certificate. In fact, no structural engineer designs if a structure is unstable, right? So they should call it safety certificate and not stability certificate. Stability means that under design loads itself it will topple. And toppling is not the game that they're supposed to check. They're supposed to go beyond and look for safety, how these structures will resist these loads and what kind of damage they will incur and whether the damage is repairable or not is what we have to ensure. So a special human effort is required now to correct all these errors. For example, in bylaws, there's one issue of land use planning. If you can see this hill slope, can you build on this hill slope on that one that is facing you? Or can you build on the back side of that other slope? That is the key question that is with us. On this slope, the soil will always keep sliding, but on the other side, the layered soil is perpendicular to the direction of the load, and so we are less likely to have a slide if you're on the inner layers because the top layers are still there before they slide out. So this is how we have to watch out on global to local planning issues. Geology also has to be considered, liquefaction has to be considered, and then only construction should be permitted in different regions. Of course, we have not been following that in this country. We have not, we have been indiscriminately carpeting all the hill slopes with a large number of constructions. And very rarely you will see buildings being built in modest size and with good distance between them. We are not talking about boutique structures. We are not talking about embedded structures. They are all done under special conditions. The model building bylaws in 2020 by the Town and Country Planning Organization of the Ministry of Urban Affairs has come up with a reasonably comprehensive document now, which every state can adopt with some modifications to customize it to their state's needs. So this is an urgent step that is required to be done by the states. And as we talked about enforcement here, at the national level, so that was the first item is about regulation. Second is enforcement. At the national level, Disaster Management Act asks us. Disaster management asks us to make sure that all constructions are disaster resilient. But that is not being followed, and so we need to come up with more explicit act called the Earthquake Risk Reduction Act now. That is needed. And at the state level, you need a Structural Safety Act. Because we have left this subject too loose, we have to come up with something more explicit in which we will do what we said before, design basis report and third-party peer review of structural design by licensed structural engineers. And at the municipal level, we need to equip the municipal offices and the public Panchayati Raj institutions with the competent professionals and structural engineers so that they can do this peer review, random audit, and they're all from private sector. So private sector has to come in a big way to be able to improve the enforcement in this country. It is not something that the government alone can do. Government can facilitate, but private sector has to come in a big way to do this. Third-party peer review is what we are looking at. So for those of us who are new to third-party peer review, building requires planning, designing, constructing, and maintaining. And that has to be done by those who went to good colleges, learned the subject properly, and passed with good marks. Those are the competent hands that we call as quality control people. But even though they are the best in the country, we still need some experienced people to overlook their work so that any mistakes that they may make can be corrected urgently, and that is called the quality assurance group. Now, this quality assurance group reports independently to the building owner, and this group, the third one, is called the third party group, which is supposed to do the peer review, right? Now, just to make sure that this peer review, as of now, we are doing very little of it actually, very little. and that too by IITs and NITs approving the design. This is not how a country can run. So we need to come out of that and get into 100% audit in the next 10 years, which means we need a large number of engineers who are competent in this subject, engineers and architects who are competent in the subject, so that they can ensure safety of the built environment in India. Just want to convince you what is the meaning of third-party peer review. On the left-hand side, I have a scenario. I'm doing modeling, analyzing, designing, and constructing, and I'm making 10 errors in each of them. So the net efficiency of modeling the structure is 90%. And analyzing also, I'm doing 10 errors, committing 10 mistakes. And so that's also 90%, and designing also 90%, constructing also 90%. Now, the overall efficiency of all of it together, modeling, analyzing, designing, and constructing, is 60%. Now come to the right-hand side, where we have a third-party peer review organization, and it is able to remove 9 of the errors. Still one error is left because they are also human beings, they also may miss it, but it is 99% efficient. Now, if you take all the 4 items to be 99% efficient, the overall efficiency is 96%. And look at the left side and look at the right side, 60% versus 96%. This is the importance of the peer review. If I can reduce the mistakes right at the beginning, then they will not cascade into something very big by the end. And that is what the third-party peer review is all about. Now, if you don't have peer review, the service life of the structure will reduce. If you have good peer review, then your service life can be enhanced significantly. Now, peer review alone will not suffice. Even quality control group has to come into picture. If you employ poor, graduates, and poor graduates meaning graduates with poor knowledge of the subject, then you will say that you are not able to get a good structure. And that is why it is important for us to employ competent people to do both quality control and quality assurance. Quality assurance group is competence plus experience, both of them. And quality control is you need not have experience, but you need to have competence. Third part is capacity development. And so first item in that is technical education. So at bachelor's, master's, postgraduate diploma and doctoral level, we have to introduce earthquake resistant design as part of the mandatory curriculum. That is what many of you said that also. The second one is for those who graduated, we need to bring continuing education into picture. And the third one is that every 3 years, the teachers and professional civil engineers need to write an examination and be licensed to be able to do design if you really want to practice design. Now you might say, I'm a teacher, I don't want to practice construction or I don't want to do any design. Why should I write this exam? The important thing is that today teachers are not learning after graduating. And so this will be one way of forcing ourselves to really become up to date in the subject, because we have to teach, we have to know more than what we have to teach in the class. If we know 100, we can teach 10 nicely in the class. So this is the least that the teachers of India can do, is to write the licensing of engineers examination. Then the last item is certification of artisans, where vernacular constructions are understood and their methods of construction are taught to masons, bar benders, welders, carpenters, and so on. Right? So in effect, when you look at technical education, it has to be holistic to have analysis, behavior, design, construction, maintenance, and retrofit. All of it has to be taught. So if an engineer has to be a complete engineer, one has to go through all of this in one's lifetime. Now you might say, how about teachers? You need to have control in the first 3, analysis, behavior, and design, and you need to have exposure to construction, maintenance, and retrofit. In fact, I would think that in the times to come, where retrofit is going to be the major professional activity, teachers will also need to learn, in addition to analysis, behavior, and design, retrofit also, and do experiments on that and show to the practicing engineers that their retrofit schemes are efficient or otherwise. Licensed engineers are the ones that will be able to travel across the world and do designs in other countries also. Or if Dhirubhai Ambani says, I want to design my plant for um, the standards of America, then you need Indians to know international standards. So it will really help if you are able to get a licensed engineer, because the person will learn quickly the design standards of other countries and implement that in this country. Licensing of engineers is a two-step process for us. We want to start with a small location, one town, one state, which is very small, let's say Union Territory, and then we can grow it to the rest of the states. Or we can start in one small pocket of Gujarat, west side, and then later we'll implement on all the east side. We can do it that way if we don't have enough hands. But the process involves 5 steps. One is you need to have a graduate, and then they will be quickly given based on a quick test. They will write a fundamentals of engineering examination and then get engineer in training certificate. Then they go through work experience. After a certain number of years of work experience formally, then they will write the principles of practice of engineering examination, which is the PE examination, and they will become an accredited professional engineer. Then they will be permitted to approve the designs. But in some important projects, you will need more advanced knowledge, and so specialized PE examinations in the subject discipline, for example, if you're looking at earthquake safety, you need to accredit these specialized engineers also in that subdiscipline, and that will be the 5th step. So the types of licenses will be the professional civil engineers license, professional electrical engineer, professional mechanical engineers, and so on. So all engineers need to be licensed eventually. But we need to begin urgently with civil engineers, because they are the ones who are doing steering the agenda of the new built environment or even modifying the existing built environment. But even within the civil engineering, there is structural engineering, there is geotechnical engineering, there is construction engineering, and so that specialized engineering professional engineers are also required in time ahead. So what is the challenge for us? The challenge is the scale. We have right now about 32 crore houses in this country, which are 97% are non-engineered and 3% are so-called engineered. And you saw the pictures of all the engineered structures also. So in effect, we need to start fresh. And 80% of this built environment is sitting in seismic zones 3, 4, and 5, which means that about 25 crore constructions have to be retrofit. Now, if this is how we are going to construct in future, then only hard work will not suffice. Some amount of regulation is also required to avoid scenarios like this. In time ahead, we pray that much of the construction will also use some very innovative but simple construction strategies like confined masonry. What is interesting is in 2022, more people in urban areas are living in multi-story buildings than in 1 to 2 story residential bungalows. And today the number is about 60% to 70%, depending on which city you are in. And that is an amazing fact, because that is going to change the way education will have to happen in colleges now. Look at these big boxes, heavy boxes sitting on slender toothpicks. This of luxury we cannot afford to do anymore. We cannot build 9-inch columns in seismic zones 5 and 4. We cannot have collapses like this anymore in the country in any of the seismic areas. We cannot have the horrifying pictures of a street full of collapses like this. Brittle collapses with 90-degree hooks should be avoided. So one of the things that bylaws have to do is outlaw unreinforced masonry and untested technologies like large panel precast constructions or pre-engineered buildings. They don't have standards today, and they are being constructed. So this is where the danger is, that the construction industry is running fast without any municipal regulations. Anything that they do is being approved on paper by a few people, and that is getting constructed, which is unfortunate. And if you have to save people in high seismic regions, every building should have structural walls going from foundation to the roof. No choice on that. So what is techno-legal regime? So the etymology says it's a technical activity, legally supported. It's a legal support for the government, and there is a system for it. A way of regulating the construction in the state to become safe against the design loads, including earthquake loads. Okay. Why is it needed? Because construction is a state subject, and safety of the people of the state is the responsibility of the state, city, and the people of the state. Virtues cannot be regulated. If you tell people do good things, they won't. People don't do everything right by themselves. Holding degrees does not guarantee graduates know how to do technical work properly. In fact, Article 21 of the Constitution of India says protection of life and personal liberty. No person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to procedures established by law. This fundamental right has been provided against state only, but where an act of private individual supported by the state infringes on personal liberty of life or another person, the act will certainly come in under the ambit. So protecting life is fundamental for every state. The state includes government departments, legislature, administration, local authorities who are exercising statutory powers, and not to non-statutory private bodies having no statutory powers, example, companies and autonomous bodies. So it's all the more responsibility of the state to have a system in place. The fundamental right guaranteed under Article 21 relates only to the act of state or acts under the authority of the state which are not according to procedure established by law. So if there is a law, National Disaster Management Act, which says that you have to make sure that they are disaster resilient, and if the states are not doing it, then we are violating Article 21 of the Constitution of India. The procedures cannot be arbitrary, unfair, or unreasonable. No one shall be deprived of his life except by procedures established by law. This procedure must be reasonable, fair, and just, and not arbitrary, whimsical, and fanciful. Article 21 imposes a restriction upon the state where it prescribes a procedure for depriving person of his land. So this is where we need a system at the municipal level, and the procedure should be not arbitrary, not unfair, not unreasonable. Right? Just as a malified act has no existence in the eye of law, even lack of procedure is unreasonable and vitiates law alike. So if people can invoke Article 21, currently no municipal corporation in the country, municipal corporation, Panchayati Raj institution, is having a legal system in place to verify the design submitted by any agency for construction before issuing them a permit to consent to establish. Right? So this is very clearly the stand of the nation, that life includes the right to live in fair and reasonable conditions. And this is what we mean. Reasonable condition means you can't be injured because we made an open ground story building and the building tilted and fell down, and in the process somebody got injured, and that is not acceptable to us. But we also need to give them a right to shelter. So if you do Indira Awas Yojana or the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, we need to make sure that all those houses are safe, and we should not allow any house which is not tested full scale before it is constructed, because so many lives will be at stake. So the stakeholders responsible in techno-legal regime are government to enact laws, academia to prepare competent human resources, and industry to set standards and adhere to the code of conduct. This is how a techno-legal regime can work, with all the three partners playing a proactive role, right? The components, as we saw, were development control regulations, bylaws, competent engineers, and peer review, and municipal offices competent to handle all of this implementation. There is enough guidance at the national level to prepare the development control regulations and bylaws, and it has to be established accordingly. In fact, the model building bylaws of 2016 have so many important segments in that. The licensing of engineers is mere education is insufficient. That's what it says, and we have to come up with a process to judge everyone on a common platform, because so many colleges, 4,000 engineering colleges, and they teach subject differently with different commitments of teachers. It is not possible to expect all graduates will come out with the same level of content. Right? And so requirement for each state is to build a safe environment, and legal backing is required for us, and regulate the eligibility of engineers, especially structural designers. And we need to have engineers for design of new structures and engineers for retrofit of existing. This is separate track altogether, and government should spend on training the government engineers at least, if not all the engineers in the state, on the subject of design of new structures and retrofit of existing structures. I'll stop here by saying that, we have not been doing things right in the past, but that is because quality was not in our focus. But if you raise the quality, you'll be able to serve more number of people in the country, even though it may be a bit slower, but you'll be able to provide for more people with this higher standards of quality. We need an integrated approach to use all the three sets of documents together, and techno-legal regime will indeed make a big difference for the safety of the people of India in the next earthquake that will happen in the country. So we need an engineering profession that is regulated by law, both at the national and state levels. And engineers should be getting full dignity of professionals, and engineers, of course, should be made accountable for the acts that they are. Accountability doesn't mean always that you'll be put behind bars. Accountability means that you do whatever you do to the best of your ability and to the expected level of benchmark. If it is not up to the benchmark, don't approve the design. So it's a joint responsibility of both the individual as well as the system to make sure that the individual grows and provide services to the acceptable level. It's a tough situation in India. We have slept for 75 years and now we want to do something nice. It is going to be a tough ask for us. And when you look at the seismic hazard in the country, and with so much of techno-legal regime missing everywhere in the country, it can be a little overwhelming. But the key is that we don't want to repeat our mistakes of the past. It's time to work together and coordinate between policymakers, governments, industry and academia, and come up with an implementable plan for techno-legal regime. As you have identified, these are the three partners. Knowledge partner is academic institutes, techno-legal regime implementer is government, and in terms of execution, we need large workforce coming from the industry in the form of professional engineers and architects. The commitment of academics is very serious because you're doing the key activity of human resource development. You need to have state-of-the-art facilities in your institutes and universities so that you can show actual behavior of structures in your own institute. In fact, you'll be lucky if there's an earthquake around your times, but if there are none, then you have to show it through your laboratory work. But you have to write a lot of documents, good practice documents, and also find solutions for all the gaps that we have. Similarly, there is a role for government on policy matters, human resource development support, and also implementation. And industry, of course, comes in to adopt and implement the techno-legal regime, identify gap areas and improve the standards, and do the skilling of artisans. So it's a partnership of a cascading level. Only education can pull us out. What has to be done is known already. We just have to implement that. Somehow there's a lot of inertia, but we hope to break this jinx soon and keep safety on the front seat in time ahead. We need to take tough decisions because we have not been forceful in the last 75 years on the matter of safety, and we have to break a lot of myths in this process. If we don't, then we will see more pictures that were shown in the yesteryears from various countries on the matter of safety. This is one picture that tells us that, to change this nation, we don't have to do big things. We have to do small things. And we have to do things that are within our hands. And that is all that we are seeking in this entire effort. I pray that each one of us will do our bit and hope that collectively the efficiencies will grow and the nation will move forward and we won't kill any more people in the time ahead. It's all in our hands now, and I'll stop here by thanking Colonel Sangvi again and thanking each one of you. Jai Hind. I can take some questions.
Yes, sir. Sir, thank you very much, sir. It was a really wonderful and interesting and informative session for all of us.
Every time you say the same thing. Amira, you're saying the same thing last time also.
No, sir.
Last
time I'm not. Sir, last time I'm not included interesting. It was a really interesting because your PPT, sir. It was really wonderful.
Okay. Well, so let's get people to ask questions now.
Yeah, sure, sir. Yeah, sure, sir. Please raise your hand if you have any query.
So the question is, are teachers having anything to do with techno-legal regime, yes or no? Is there a role for teachers in techno-legal regime? I think they have gone to shopping, all of them. मम्मी ने बुलाया है सब्जी लेके आना तो everybody has gone सब्जी लेने.
Yes.
बताइए. So in fact, if we don't teach properly, we are violating Article 21 of the Constitution of India. Because we are actually causing the threat to life by not teaching the subject properly to the people who are in our classes, the students who are in our classes, or the colleagues who are in our classes. So it's a serious matter. Article 21 is very, very clear.
Yeah, please raise your hand to ask questions, please.
They're having to plead with them. How can teachers become so stiff? They know everything.
Yes, Lokesh.
I asked a question whether teachers have any role in techno-legal regime. They're not willing to answer. But
some of them have written in the chat box. Some of them have written in the chat box. Yeah.
Where is the chat box, bhai? I'm not able to see the chat box.
It is just near the participants icon.
I only have that raising the hand wala and then 3 dots. Oh. I don't have the chat box wala there with me. Because I'm not in your group, possibly the chat box is not with me.
Okay.
Can you read the question if there's any? Who is the person? Okay, there's a hand raised here.
No, they said that the teacher's role is important. As far as
the same criminals are coming back. Lokesh is asking question. Lokesh, ask your question. Every time the same 5 people will ask questions. Others are smoking BDs actually.
Sir, you are told that in.
My apologies for whatever I told. But go ahead on to the question. Every time you say you told that, you blame me for telling something.
Just acknowledging, sir.
Just go ahead on to the question.
Yes, sir.
Don't say you told that.
Yes, sir. Sir, 9-inch columns are not good in seismic zones, you had told, sir. I would really try to do calculations and try to get a number, but is there any recommendation that this should be a minimum thickness for a column in seismic zone like Gujarat or especially Kutch?
You are not reading the Indian standards. Have you read IS 13920?
No, sir.
That is the reason. Because in Madras there is no earthquake, so you are thinking you are in seismic zone 3. So IS 13920 says minimum 300 mm is column size.
Okay, sir.
But I am saying 300 also will not suffice. If you have a bad earthquake, 300 will not suffice. You can go 1 story, 2 story with 300,
Okay,
but
sir.
not multi-story with 300.
Okay, sir.
If you're in seismic zone 5, 300 will not suffice. Seismic zone 4 will not suffice.
Okay, sir.
For gravity alone, if you calculate, you will realize you are in trouble. Shear is second order problem. Yeah.
Sir, and is it better to depend on a square column or a rectangular column for the same area? Is it going to help in any way in fighting earthquake from your experience, sir?
Ideally, square is the best.
Okay, sir.
Square is the best ideally.
Okay.
The game is that in the efficiency of a rectangular column is so poor on the other side that you have to keep rotating all your columns in different directions. And the net stiffness is what you have to come up with. But that is not going to be so easy when the span lengths are keeping on changing from X direction to Y direction. Ideally, you would want to keep square columns. Now, I must also say at this point of time, don't ever in your life ever use circular columns. Okay, except sir. Piles which will be circular, okay, but don't use circular columns. Okay,
sir. In fact, that was my next question. Sir. I was about to ask about circular columns.
I know that you will ask me. I know that you'll ask me. That's why we're saving time for you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
You'll ask me this, I know.
No, sir, I thought whether since that is radial, since that is symmetrical in this axis.
It might look good. All things that look good are not safe for you. Right? Anything that is beautiful, if you go towards a rose, there's a thorn also. So that is the problem. Circular columns look good, but they are not necessarily the best. They are half as efficient in terms of strength, and they are very poor in moment of inertia also.
Okay, okay.
So you lose material unnecessarily. So for all those who want to show off, I want to say, make a square column and put a circular finish on top of it. Anyway, you are wasting 90% of the money on finishes because you are worried only about finish. So like in airports, you go, no, they make circular columns and put, rectangular columns and put circular steel covering on it because they want to see circles only. Somehow they made up their mind. I want to see only a circle in my life.
But my notion, my understanding was that since circle is symmetrical in multiple axes, it is going to be more efficient. Is that not correct, sir? How?
Yes and no. Yes and no, because for lazy people, you can do only one calculation and get away. In case of the square cross section, you have to do more than one calculation. Right. But the bottom line is that when you are seeing that for the same material, you're getting half the strength. That is one issue. Second issue is if you look at the PM interaction diagram, you will see that the balance point is sometimes below the horizontal axis. That means balance point is on the tension side, not on the compression side. That means failure will always be by crushing of concrete, which means no ductility in your structure.
Okay.
Circular columns have no ductility.
Okay, sir.
Square columns have much more ductility than circular columns.
Okay.
That is the reason why we are always insisting that don't use any circular columns. They are least efficient.
Thank you, sir. We learned a lot, sir.
I'm grateful. How can you say we learned a lot? Nobody else is asking questions. Only you are asking questions. Somebody else? Nobody else.
So what about specially shaped column? Like plus shaped column? Yeah, specially shaped like plus column, plus type means they are embedded in the wall.
In your steel design class, you have been told the star shaped has got zero torsional resistance. So that is the worst in life, star shaped. Right? L shape is very poor. In one direction it is very good, in the other direction it is very bad. Right? The shaking goes in this direction, flange is giving you lot of tension, excellent. But when it comes this direction, compression, game is over. Right? So we have a challenge with L shape, T shape. They are unsymmetrical in terms of shaking. On one side they give a lot of strength, on the other side they give poor strength. So that is why all these alphabetic shapes are not good for you. Don't unnecessarily go into alphabetic shape. East or west, square is the best. But if you want to use rectangles, then you have to use structural walls. On the weak direction, you have to support with structural walls. Enough.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Chetan bhai.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, generally, when we are purchasing a 2 rupee Parle glucose biscuit, on the wrapper, everything is written, content and everything. But when we are purchasing a house worth 2 crore rupees, and we are not knowing what is there in our house, nothing.
True.
So, what is the is it possible to make design available, RC design available to the owner of the house who is purchasing?
Yeah, you write in your contract that I want to get the design documents as well as design drawings, and he has to give it to you. You say 40% money, last 40% will be depending on giving you all of these documents. He'll definitely give you. He has no choice. But my worry is he'll give you some documents, whether they belong to that building or not. You and I can catch. Others will not be able to catch. Right? A common man who's not a civil engineer, not a structural engineer, will not be able to understand whether this drawing belongs to this building or some other building.
Yeah.
So instead of worrying about this kind of visuals, I'm saying it is best if the state gives certificate only to those constructions which are going through a proper formal procedure of analysis, design and construction.
Okay.
In fact, other countries have licensed construction engineers who will go to the site and then do inspection and say, no, ये concrete निकालो, ये bar bending, ये सब ठीक नहीं है, उसको redo करो. They do that. So there are civil engineers who will go to the site. There are structural engineers who do design. There are civil engineers who do design and go to site. All of that. So we need to walk into that direction eventually. Actually.
And sir, another part already we have discussed earlier, but I think it is more focus, right? If I'm talking about like earthquake subject is not there in the curriculum, and then GIDM or GSDM is trying to train the engineers in this field. And if you look at they are training 30 people in one training program, and they are it costing 1 lakh rupees or 2 lakh rupees for the training. And we have, like in Gujarat, we have 12,000 vacancies for the civil engineering. It is not possible at all. So rather than going for the capacity building after the graduation, it should be there in the curriculum, like the subjects.
Yes. In fact, this is very true. You need to do only 10% extra work if you want to introduce in the curriculum and retrain the teachers or align the teachers in the direction of earthquake safety. For example, your teachers who teach design, if you are looking at a college with 30 civil engineering faculty members, only about 5-6 teach design. If every year one teacher can get upgraded in design, in 5 years that college can teach seismic design as part of the curriculum. In 5 years. So we should have a roadmap that these teachers should be upgraded. The only thing is that faculty members should be willing to learn after graduating. Most of us feel that I'm a PhD, I don't need to learn anymore. Game is over. That is where we are in trouble actually. That ahankar, that ahambhav, that I know everything is what is ruining academia. In fact, we should not stop learning till we retire. In fact, after we retire also we can still learn some more, but that will be for a different purpose. We have to give the advantage of the best available knowledge to the people of India through our classrooms. We have to do that.
And sir, in 2000, after 2001 earthquake, in 2003, the committee was formed, and they find out the reasons for the collapse or this devastation in Gujarat, and it was found out that this earthquake subject was not there in the curriculum. At that time, they have noticed that these subjects were taught in different subjects earlier, but nobody were teaching those fundamentals earlier. So that's why we need this separate subject. And in 2016, again, a board of university board of studies met, and they, as per the new AICTE model curriculum, they have opted for the many other subjects, and they have actually removed this subject at all. And
Yes.
it is came as an elective subject, but right now, out of 12,000 students, only 400 students are opting this earthquake subject in Gujarat. I tell you, this is the fact. Out of 12,000 civilian students.
Yeah, this is quite unfortunate that the memories fade, and then 20 years after the earthquake today, we have no interest in earthquake safety again. This is really unfortunate. But notwithstanding that, as LD College, you can prepare a module and share with the practicing engineers yourself. The reason is that tomorrow, if the government makes it compulsory, our own teachers have to be ready to be able to teach. And that's why I'm very happy that you have taken up this faculty development program, but I don't see much development because faculty members are not asking questions. Mr. Vinayaka. Vinayaka, switch on your video and then come up and ask question. You have to unmute yourself, Vinayaka.
Sir, I am from KSRM Kadapa. So my question is, so in our AP, so if you take Visakhapatnam area, so in that area in the recent times, so the tremors are developed at the coastalite area. So there is a construction which are going on the hilly area sides, that is Millennium Towers, so Rushikanda areas. So what are the aspects? So in the consent of land use planning, so that are politically involved some politicians. So in the technical side, so day by day there is a deforestation will taking place. So what are the aspects that we have to consider in these subjects?
Yeah. So far as politics is concerned, in earthquake engineering, no place for politics. We can't handle politics in earthquake. We can't write a differential equation on politics here, right? On matters that are related to built environment, there are national standards, there is a zoning done, and the local authorities have to implement that. If the local authorities, if the judiciary and executive go hand in glove, that's dangerous. If the executive takes a unilateral view, that is also dangerous for us. When the best of the knowledge is codified in the standards and regulations, following that is the only wise thing to do. As of now, unless techno-legal regime comes in, there is no way you can control any of these ill elements of nature of the community. Those excesses will continue to happen. That is the headache that we have to live with for some more time till wisdom grows. Either wisdom grows or we go to such a low point in life that after that you can do only good things.
Yes.
Right? But as teachers, we have to always give the straight advice to the people. Anybody. We should not hesitate. There's no fear at all in this matter. Okay, so yes, it is the difficult path for us, but we are responsible for, we are the torch bearers of the society. If we can't tell the truth, who will tell the truth?
Yes, sir.
So don't give up. Vinayaka, fight hard. Keep informed. Don't have to insist on your answer, but say your answer. When you come to a power of authority, then you can insist on your answer. But you and I are not in any power anytime, right? So yes, obviously we will only say that, do all the good things all the time. We'll do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vinayaka.
Now I guess no one has query. Thank you, sir, for answering all the questions. Thank you very much, sir.
Grateful. Thank you, Amara.
Yes, sir. Now we will have a break till 2:30. Next session will be conducted by Dr. D.C. Rai sir on earthquake performance on confined masonry structures and Indian code provisions at 2:30. Now we all can leave this meeting and join at 2:30. Thank you.
One minute. Yogesh